So let's get started on our topic, mastering the unpredictability of logistics. Let me go ahead and do some introductions. Most of you probably know who Mitch Wesley is. I knew him before I got to work with him, so I'm excited about that. He is a founder of 3G TMS and is a member of our board of directors. And he's got a long and illustrious career working in technology, software, and the logistics space. So good morning, Mitch.
Morning.
I'm Alan Minton. I am the Vice President of Sales for PaceJet, which is a division of 3G. We're more of a multi-carrier shipping tool. We deal with parcel and LTL type of shipping, and I have a group of guys and women that do account management and sales and partnerships and stuff. So I'm going to be a bit more of the interviewer of Mitch, right? We're going to tap into his knowledge and his experience on this, and that's how we're going to move forward. Let me at least share the agenda. What's that old line? Tell them what you're going to tell them, then tell them what you told them. So this is the part of what we're going to tell you. We've done we're going to do an introduction on 3G. 3G's changed a lot in the last year, including the acquisition of PaceJet. So we want to give you maybe a more updated view of what you know about 3G. Then we have a couple key topics that we're seeing amongst our current customers and prospects and really the industry. And the one we'll talk about in the beginning is if you're just addressing the challenges you're facing today, you're behind. And we'll talk why that's the case. But we'll also give you, that's a little bit of the hurt, here's the rescue. We'll talk about a couple different keys to mastering that unpredictability and how to get ahead, right? And we'll tap into Mitch on that. We'll also talk, we'll bring up a couple of customer case studies, right? I think that's very helpful for people to see themselves and other customers and maybe find some common challenges and how they were able to use 3G to help them meet those challenges. And of course, any questions that you have, if you want to wait to the end, you can do that, and we'll get through those. So, are you ready to get going there, Mitch?
Let's do it.
Okay. So let's go a bit about 3G. I'm going to give a high-level overview, and then Mitch, you comment where I may miss, because this is certainly, you're a founder of this company, so you know more about this. I'm going to leave the proven partner piece in the middle. It's central to what we do, but I'm going to get back to it because I'm going to touch on a couple other things here. We do a lot of stuff, right? There's billions of dollars in freight under management that's being managed today by 3G. I really like our one platform for all operations. That's something that's unique to us. We are the single place to go to manage all of this, to get those net savings. You know, we've got above 10% on the net savings. To enable that growth that you have there. A lot of customers have been with us forever. 95% of our customers keep coming back and moving forward. And one of the things I want to talk about is that when we reference that single platform and how we take all these complex things and simplify it, it's because we take a lot of our revenue and are constantly putting it back into this platform. Mitch is going to touch on the importance of that for us and for you, the audience, when we talk about if you're just dealing with today, you're behind. When you wrap all that together and you see the 95% retention and the ability to help save money and grow, what you find with 3G is we are a proven partner for our customers, and we're very proud about that. Mitch, do you have any other comments you want to address with that?
I mean, I think, the partner is really the key here because, software is huge, obviously, and without a great product, you're nowhere. But we need to view together all of our relationships as partnerships. We need to win together, and it's only by not only improving the product, but making sure that we can work together with people, and when people have issues, they bring them to us. We try very hard to find ways to solve them. The attitude of that partnership, hopefully going in both directions, I think, combined with the product is what drives success, and really important to us to maintain that partnership perspective, that partnership focus as a company.
Yeah, well said. Exactly. That's perfect. Let me switch us over to a little bit about the PaceJet piece, right? So I do see when I take a look at our attendees here, I do see some PaceJet customers, so you know some of this. But there's a lot of 3G TMS customers saying, "Who's this new division?" PaceJet's a multi-carrier shipping system. Again, see the proven partner in the middle there. Take a look at our customer retention rate. We help people ship their stuff via parcel and LTL. Two key things. We have a huge carrier network. We're integrated into 67 different carriers, and we get to leverage also the 3G TMS carrier integrations. That's great. We have a lot of native ERP integrations, and that's really at one of our key value propositions. So whether you're using Oracle NetSuite, or you're using Microsoft Dynamics or Infor or Acumatica, etc., we're already integrated in that. So what we do is we help people use their systems of record. If they want to ship, they can do it through that, connect the rest of the carriers, and we just bring back all the documents and all that stuff. So that's really what PaceJet does. We help people get more stuff out the door at a lower price point, much more efficiently. Reduction in labor, lower in cost. And obviously, over the last 12 to 18 months, we've seen shipping go through the roof because a lot of people aren't going places. So this has, we've seen an increase in demand for what we do. And I've been very pleased with how we've responded. Our customers are pleased too. So there's your PaceJet story for you. If you have questions about that afterwards, about 3G TMS for your PaceJet customers that are on, or the 3G TMS customers, we can catch up afterwards if you'd like to know a little bit more. But let's get into the meat of what we're here for, and let's start tapping Mitch's mind, right? I want to talk about this concept of being where you are today. If you are satisfying today's needs, you're actually behind. So I'm going to open it up, allow you to do a little free flow and riff on this type of stuff. But Mitch, can you talk about why are you behind if you're just doing good today?
I think if we think about the last couple of years, not many people on this call would have predicted what happened over the last 2 years if we go back 2 years ago. And we've seen in our industry more changes than I think any of us would have imagined, changes themselves that we wouldn't have imagined, and we continue to see changes. And without going crazy, I think it's clear the changes are on all sides. Our suppliers are driving us to change things. Our customers are driving us to change things. Our carriers are driving us to change things, et cetera, et cetera. And I think it should be clear to just about everybody on the call that we're not going to stop changing. And so, with that being the case, I think it's particularly important when one thinks about their transportation software that they keep that issue in mind, really on as top of mind as anything. And so with that in mind, if you think that your business will change meaningfully over the next couple of years, you remember you're buying software for many years. No one is buying one of these products to run for 3 months. They're buying it to run for 5 to 10 years or more. You realize that you have to buy it to handle what will be significantly different in that future period, and B, you realize that you don't know what those differences are going to be. And so fundamentally, if you're focusing really on the features and the functions and the issues of today, that's important. That's table stakes. Obviously, you need to handle those. But you really need to think about not just features and functions, but design, and going back to that partnership issue. And do you have a company whose product is designed in a way that it can meet whatever issues are thrown at you over that 5-year period? And do you have a company that's going to work with you as a partner so that together we find a solution so that we can address these issues, these uncertain and unknown issues that will come up over the years.
I got a question I want to ask you while you're talking about change continuing to occur. We have a question coming in here. It's a little bit asking you to provide some predictions. The pace of change has really ramped up in the last 12 to 18 months.
Yeah,
so Mitch Wesley, do you think that pace of change, do you think the pace of change will continue to occur?
So, I think we've obviously lived through one of the craziest periods of all time in the last 18 months. So I think that hopefully is ending. I think, the next 6 to 12 months, I think we're going to see extraordinary changes and an extraordinary pace of change because, we're emerging from COVID and, so many things are so different and, supply chain as a whole, I think has been pushed in ways that clearly show a lot of weaknesses and challenges in the way people have approached the supply chain over the last several decades. And so I think, there's great uncertainty as we sort of settle back. Did people, for example, spend so much more on their houses over the last year or two that now that's going to go down and travel is going to go up because people didn't travel? Or is it the flip side? People said, boy, this was great and I'm going to keep spending on my house, or, we could go on and on. We just don't know. So I think the next year we're going to see the pace of change, give or take, at the same pace that it's been. But, I think a year or so down the road, we're going to start to see the global economy get to a point of some level of equilibrium. So I think the pace of change will decrease a little bit at that point. However, the big secular trends, particularly around e-commerce, shipping more and more frequent, but smaller shipments, things like that, I think those trends will continue. So I think we're in for then, post the next 12 months, I think we're in for a period of much higher change than we've had historically, but not to the extent that we've had in the last 18 months.
Okay, perfect. And that looks like that answers the question. So thank you for that. Let's get, the next bullet point we have up here is very provocative, right? Failure is just a matter of time and it is unavoidable. But that's not a doomsday prediction, right? It's just a statement and there's a way in which you can be successful. Can you elaborate on that?
Well, I think the first thing I always think about is, what we do is hard. Logistics is a very difficult industry. Logistics software and the related implementations are challenging. This stuff just doesn't work. Sometimes when I even go into a meeting with a customer, when we talk about the unpredictability of logistics, I said, hey, I left my hotel room 45 minutes ago and, Waze said it would take me 28 minutes and it took 34. So, even when we put a truck on the road, even when a truck is moving, you still don't know what's going to happen, whether it be something like traffic or weather or mechanical breakdowns, et cetera. So we are in an industry that's difficult, and we need to understand that and we need to embrace it. I also like to say that to be successful, those who are successful in our industry are those who embrace the craziness of it, and those who think they know better and fight the craziness are the ones who typically fail. So when you look at all that, you realize again that it is difficult. And the second piece is, when you deal with logistics technology, yes, this one is expensive, that one's expensive, this one's more expensive, that one's less expensive, but what's really expensive is failure. Okay, if your implementation fails, or if the product that you have doesn't meet your needs for a long period of time, you know, that's far more expensive than any direct spend that you have on the software. And I'm including in that, you know, not only the software itself, but the support, the hosting, the implementation, your time, company's time, etc. So we have to realize, you know, that failure is just really, really expensive in what we do, and the cost of change is extraordinarily expensive. And so, you know, I think the key really is, again, going back, planning for the long term, buying a product and from, you know, that will and can adapt and adopt and meet your needs again, and with a company that will do it, so that, you know, you have a product that will work for you for decades. You know, funny aside is early on in the 3G life, which probably going back about 6 years now or so, you know, I got a call from a guy who was using software that I had wrote myself in the 80s. And I think he was the last guy in the world using software that I actually wrote when so I began as a developer. You know, and he had never found anything that did what he wanted. He finally switched to the 3G product. And so now nobody uses software that I actually wrote, which is just a reflection of my age. But the important point there is that, you know, that software worked for him from probably, you know, I don't know, 88, 89, 90, you know, until 2015, something like that. And so, you know, yes, ultimately, no matter how good the product is, whether it's 10, 20, 25 years, you're going to need something new. You know, the technology is going to change, the world will change. But if you make sure you're buying, you know, what we want to do, what you should want to do when you're selecting software, implementing and using, is look at that long runway and make sure that we extend that period so that failure is not in a year or two or three, but it's in, you know, 15 or 20 years, so that it, you know, we can say we got a lot of value out of this thing, and now it's time to look at it at replacing it 20 years later.
Well, there's a key thing about the architecture and design, and I know we're going to get onto that here in a second. And I want to make sure we're mindful of our time and our cadence, but there's a really interesting question I want to ask, and then we'll get on to the next thing here. But the question is, you referenced the global pandemic, right? And how we're emerging from it. But the United States is emerging. India is not. South America is not. Parts of Eastern Europe and Asia, certainly Africa, are not. And I don't know if we can comment too much on it, but I think it does go back to the applications that people use. And if you just want to give just a brief a comment on, can the software accelerate? So I'm going to paraphrase this. Can it accelerate those places where the economies are accelerating and still be modified enough to deal with those where there's still troubles and challenges?
Well, you know, the key is that the software that you use, you know, is flexible enough to address whatever the world is going to throw at you. And I think to design the software correctly, you know, you really need to spend a lot of time up front and think through what you're trying to solve. What are you know, what's, I'll say, in the solution, what's out of the solution. You know, I liken my software development approach, I liken always to a jigsaw puzzle. You know, we have a picture that we draw out and say, that's what we're solving. You know, this is in and that's out. You know, you know, we don't handle every single mode and every single geography. If we did, you know, we would build a system that is so cumbersome that it's unusable. But on the other hand, we do a hell of a lot, and we pick our areas of focus very carefully. And by doing that up front and doing it right, we can build a product that's sort of the right balance between flexibility, power, and yet ease of use, so that we can solve a large percentage of the problems for a large percentage of the market with the right level of ease of use. And so with that, I think nothing that I've seen that the pandemic has thrown at us really presents something that we didn't think through up front and didn't design in the ability to handle it. And I think that's really the key. So I certainly don't see anything, emerging in the next, as far as I can see, I don't see anything emerging that really we won't be able to handle. Not 100% necessarily at all within the system today, but the key in that design is that the system has a place for it. We never stop investing in our software. We spend many millions of dollars every year improving our software. So it's not like we ever say it's done. The real key is that the software is designed so that, this kind of thing that you want, it has a place, it's easily put in, and it's put in a way that's very, very usable. One of the things that a lot of people comment on relating to 3G versus some other systems is pretty much, you go into one system, you can set one screen, you can do pretty much what you need to from that screen. You don't jump around. And that's not an accident. The reason that we've been able to do that is, again, we knew what we wanted to solve. So it's not like somebody came in and said, gee, I want this other thing, and said, holy, shit, we didn't think about that when we designed it. We have to design a whole new module. And I think, I've been doing this since 1982 or 3. The other two co-designers, we're doing it for 25 years or so, since the 90s. So we had all built and designed enough TMSs that we were able to do that. And I think, here we are 8 years into our journey, and no one really has, thrown at us anything that we didn't design a place for. And
I think what I'm seeing in yours, having met you a couple of years ago and began working with the development team now of our combined entity, I think I was pretty impressed with the focus that they do. I understand the BA work, the business analysis work they do. They do put together the BRDs, but the focus on user experience has been outstanding, right? And it becomes so much more that way now because people use their phones, right? They use their laptops for almost everything. So user experience has become, well, I think you used the phrase table stakes earlier. It's almost that now. It has got to be. Expectations that consumer products have set for business products are high, and that's a good thing, because I think the way we've designed it, we've been able to meet that demand. Let's touch briefly on this last bullet point you have, which is called "Time is your competitor's ally," and then we'll get to our how we're going to master that unpredictability of logistics. So, touch on that phrase there. Time's your competitor's ally. Why is that?
I think today's challenges are pretty significant, like we've discussed, and we got to meet them. We got to meet them now. I think the speed that businesses have to move to adjust to changes has accelerated. Like we said before, we have a solid year, and maybe more, but quite a bit of time where we're going to continue at this incredibly rapid pace of change, and our secular change winds are still massive. And so, if we're not moving, our competitors are moving, and they're getting better. And so the reality is, and only the best survive. And so if we sit, whomever we are, complacently about our supply chain and our logistics operations, fulfillment operations, we should assume our competitors are getting better, and stability for us means we fall further behind. So I don't think anybody on this call can be successful with the premise that, continuing to be just as good and doing things the same is going to be a formula for success.
Yeah. So the pivot, we even see this on the MCS side, the multi-carrier shipping side. We have a particular company, love them. They've been using this for a long time. They ship out medical device stuff, right? Well, pandemic comes along, and what happens? There's a lot of home health testing, right? Whether it's DNA testing, you get a lot of companies that say, hey, we want to bring you on board. There's drug testing. There's heart machines that go out and stuff like that. They called us up and they said, we've got a completely new business model. We got acquired by a larger company. And what we do is we want to send a box out to the doctor. And in it, it has 10 devices, but that doctor's got to get those 10 back to us. Caitlin, you may remember, I think they were heart monitor ones. And well, all of a sudden, instead of just shipping, how do we get one box to our doctor? We've got to get one box out with 10 things back. We got to do it because they're competing for this brand. It's not a brand new market, but it's a market that dramatically expanded. All this home health. You're seeing, I think Abbott's got commercials on the NBA playoffs about their COVID testing things. A lot of people are doing a lot of home health care and sending it back in. People had to pivot just like that. So you're right. If they're not going to do it, these large pharmaceutical companies are going to find someone who's going to do it for them. So that's you're right. Let's get to the next topic. I think where a lot of people here we're excited about. We're going to talk about the 3 different keys to helping master this dramatic unpredictability of logistics. We'll have the bullet points up here, but let's elaborate a little bit more. Foresight, nice word, but take that, the phrase foresight, match it back up to if you're staying status quo, right? You're kind of getting behind. So talk a little bit about foresight for us in the unpredictability of logistics.
I mean, yeah, and I think even, the 3 together, really, you can weave them together well as well. I mean, look, foresight, we've talked about the change. Change is happening. It's inevitable. I think we've been through that. We certainly, but what we haven't talked about in that realm is we have to obviously focus on today, but we have to try to gather the data points around what's happening and get a feel for where things are going, so that we don't get hit between the eyes and realize that we're the last one at the party. We want to whether it's predicting or simply taking in the hints of what's going on, we have to see some period in front of us, and we have to start working around that. And the flexibility side, comes back to what we discussed before around the design of the product, that it has to be flexible enough to meet those needs. And you combine the foresight and flexibility, and so we want to think about those things in the early innings and not the late innings. We want to think about them as they're either about to happen, if they're going to happen soon, which is fine, and if the sooner the better. Obviously, nothing in our industry is immediate. Whether it's implementing software, retraining people, potentially writing new things, reconfiguring. So if we have more time in advance, with the foresight, we can address those. We can address those issues better, and we certainly never want to be in a position, where somebody comes and says, "Okay, I need this, and by the way, I need it in 3 weeks, because that's what my customers are demanding." And it's like, well, it's going to take more than 3 weeks for some reason. Whether it's a new module, new implementation, new development, whatever. So that's really the combination of those 2. And I think competency, is huge here as well, because I think really, we still need people in what we do who really know the business. And one of the things I think that's particularly important, that's really underlooked, is that if you think about what a TMS really does at its heart and boil it down, the idea is you get a bunch of orders, you figure out how to move them, you execute the moves, you settle the freight, the financials, and you report on them. And the key that is often overlooked is that a TMS will only consider the routing options that are loaded in, and so a great TMS is, among other things, one that can consider any options that a great user can come up with. But but that combination of the great user and the great TMS is extraordinarily powerful. And that's what we mean by particularly under the competency side, so that whether we're thinking about today or tomorrow, as a logistics professional, coming up with different options for transportation, which is which is of course, I want different kinds of carriers for different kinds of freight, but it also might mean multi-legged moves, whether it's multi-legged intermodal, or it could be moving freight to terminals or DCs, either just as a waypoint in the move, or sometimes just to hang around for a few days or even weeks or months for order fulfillment that's faster. The more of these things that the logistics team comes up with, creates those options, negotiates with those service providers, has the rates negotiated, entered into the system, and allows the system to choose from these things. If all of that's done really well, as things change, i.e. the unpredictability, the beauty here is the TMS just comes up with new ideas, new routes, new methods. Not that new methods that, when I say these new methods, it's not that they've been thought of. That's the competency part. The data have been loaded, the relationships have been built, but they've been used minimally, potentially for years, but suddenly they become the key to success because the world has changed. And that, they might be the key to success for a few weeks, a few months. They might be the key to success for many, many years. And I think that's why this combination of foresight, flexibility, and competency really allows a company to absolutely obliterate the competition by combining all of these things. And one of the things that really, again, a great TMS can do is, when you have all of this stuff, if you think about it, a human being tends to do things almost by rote, especially, okay, I have my orders, how am I going to move them today? And it tends to be somewhat repetitive. The TMSs in some ways, are pretty stupid, but they're really fast. And so it doesn't know that, I used to do it this way, but now because, a carrier no longer is available, or his costs have gone up so much, or the amount of product, the size of the orders have gone up or down significantly, whatever it is, suddenly new options, new routes are automatically created, things that nobody ever thought of before. And that's simply because the order mix has changed, and it allows a company to react to the unpredictability without even having to think about it, and without falling into the trap of having end users and their the guys routing the freight and so on, without falling into the trap of them simply being doing things the way they used to do it because of what they know over many years. And I think this combination, if done right, really would put any company in a whole different league from their peers.
Well, and I think it's also, I mean, it's a good point, but it's not only just a mix right there. I'm thinking of one opportunity right now that we're working with. Their business model has changed, right? They're a publishing company. So they've been distributing things with publishing company and not a whole lot of desire anymore to read a lot of the printed word in hand. They've shifted over to now an apparel company, and they're buying apparel companies to wrap it up under their books. So they're able to work with us. I mean, it's a complete business shift in how they're doing. And their publishing was business B2C, right? Direct to consumers. Their apparel is going to be direct to consumer, but it's also going to be to business as well. They've had to pivot their whole business model on this. New relationships or new versions of existing relationships with those that are distributing it. And one of the neat things about it is they didn't have to change the software, right?
Exactly.
They're able to do it, the design. So that's the part about, and also because, I'm tooting our own horn, right? We do a lot of apparel companies and we do a lot of publishing companies. So knowing that business, the design was there in the beginning, and we're able to support their change without having them have to do a significant investment in their tech stack. And that's a good thing. Let's go to what I think is usually one of my favorite parts of other webinars that I attend is like, all right, thanks for telling this, Mitch and Alan. Now explain how it relates to companies or people like me. So let's talk a bit about, and I'm going to do the first one. This is one of my favorite customer stories, and then we'll get to yours next, Mitch, okay? Alpha Broder Prime, great company of ours. We've been working with them for a long time. Ran into a pickle in the beginning of the pandemic. Warehouse workers moving forward, they're shipping, they're doing well. Someone is put into the COVID protocol. They did not get COVID and they were fine, but they were put into the protocol. And if you remember back in April and May, that meant that not only did they have to go and quarantine, but those that were within the proximity of them were also had to go ahead and go into the COVID protocol and quarantine. Well, that meant that the shipping staff in the warehouse were all out. So what are they going to do? Their customers are still wanting to purchase their products and have those products delivered directly to them. What was great was they took some of the more administrative and finance department folks. They went out to the warehouse. They used PaceJet, our PaceJet product, the 3G TMS product called PaceJet, which is a cloud-based application. The user experience, which I think we talked about earlier, Mitch and stuff, was such that the folks that were at home were walking the finance and administrative people through how to continue shipping and moving stuff out. So that's the great short term, right? The nice long-term benefit that they got out of that is, it was just one day to take an inexperienced team and train them to continue keeping business up there. And once they did that and uncovered a variety of different things, their shipping volume, daily shipping volume has doubled using the same tool, right? So there's the unpredictability we talked about, the user experience that we talked about, and the flexibility that we talked about. And Alpha Broder is just doing fantastic. Their business is continuing to grow. They're lowering some costs now because they've got this cloud application that doesn't require them to have multiple ERP licenses on different workstations and things like that. So it's been a really good, case study for us. We liked working with Crystal and her team. So that's one example of how technology, well designed and well thought out, can save the day in an unpredicted crisis. I know you've got a really great story with Green Circle growers, and I know we do a lot in this space, and it's been such a growing space, obviously, during the pandemic. People have gotten so much more interested in not only just the interior development of their homes, but outside as well as other facilities. So you want to chat a little bit about what we've done for Green Circle Growers, Mitch?
Great, sure. So, I think there's really two quick points we want to talk about here. I think this is a great quote, and um, it really adds a little bit of meat to what we were talking about a few minutes ago. The reality is that, that last little statement, whatever our plans, the 3G TMS team has never said we don't know how to do that. And that really relates to that combination of great software, well designed with power and flexibility, combined with that great team and the great attitude to say, yeah, we can make this tool address whatever issue comes down the road. And we've worked with Green Circle for many years, and things change, and whatever their needs have grown, as their plants grow and their needs grow, we are always able to meet it. So I think that's just, we see that over and over and over again, and that's that's just what we're all about. I think the other thing with Green Circle that's particularly exciting and particularly important is not it's a good sized company. It's not enormous, but they spend a meaningful amount of money on freight, and their challenges in freight and routing freight are significant. Moving plants are really sort of atypical. Most shippers are shipping things that are not alive, things that are in boxes on pallets. This stuff is much, you got to keep it growing and so on. So what's really good here, really important here, I think, is the importance of the algorithm, the optimization algorithm that we use to route the freight. It's an interesting thing that's happened in our industry over the last, I'd say, 5 or 10 years, where a lot of companies say, "Oh yeah, I have optimization," and I get asked often about people, or by people, I'm sorry, and then they say, "Well, I tried optimization, it didn't work," and a lot of people don't, really have the assumption that optimization is a commodity, and that optimization just works magically. The reality is, that optimization is very challenging, but the rewards, the payback can be 10 to 20% of freight spend. So the rewards are enormous. But what really separates, this is by far our biggest product advantage over everybody else. And it really relates to two important things. One is the constraints. And that means, you have to build loads that can be run. An algorithm that routes freight and says, yeah, this is the cheapest way to do it, but it doesn't take into consideration the craziness of the customer demands, the craziness of the products, et cetera, and builds loads. And then you say, oh, do you have to manually adjust them because they're not following the constraints, appointment windows, capacity, whatever. That's worthless. And so the algorithm itself has to be built around the constraints, not vice versa. So our design is unique, our approach is unique, and that's why we are probably unique in being able to build loads that can be run, and therefore we can achieve the savings. The other really big point, which is embedded in this quote, is the product is built around the optimization engine, and not separate, so that when we make changes, the optimization says, oh, you can't do that, or this is another way to do it, or so on and so forth. One of the crazy things that that a lot of companies have a problem with is, and I'll end with this one, is, you have a load, and let's say it's a 3-stop load, and let's say the truckload cost from your typical carrier on that lane is $3,000. And if you were shipping 3 large LTLs, that would be $3,200. And today, you don't have a lot of carrier availability, and you end up with a high cost carrier. And so instead of being a normal $3,000, maybe it's $3,500 or $3,800. Well, the LTLs, assuming they are viable, would actually save a lot of money over that multi-stop truckload, which normally makes sense. So here you get a load, the load looks great. When you go out to execute it, the data change. Based on the changing data, you see that the original routing no longer makes sense. And in the case of 3G, you'll say, holy, look at this. The load no longer makes sense financially. And it gives you the ability to say, yep, break it apart, run 3 LTLs and save money today. And I don't believe any other product can do something like that. And, that's, so it is A, the constraints, and B, dealing with all the craziness of the world, all of the changes that allow our product to be, where it stands, and really be as successful in implementing and saving money as it is.
Well, and I know we have taken some of that great optimization capabilities, right? So when I'm looking, I'm sorry, I have my slides up over here while I'm looking into the camera, but when I looked at it, I saw the 228 fewer loads with improved space utilization. So when you come into, let's say, the parcel and LTL side on the PaceJet component, right, of 3G TMS, that's why we've got this new transportation planning component, because we've brought that capability down now, and we're seeing a lot of value for our customers saying, well, I was going to send these 5 or 6 loads to these people, but I can hold a day, consolidate them into one area, ship it via this methodology. Everyone gets what they need when they need it, and the cost for sending it out. So we kind of have a light version of the optimization that we're bringing into the PaceJet side. And it's fascinating to see how many people get excited by saying, I'm sending less loads, better space utilization, lower cost of shipping. It's made a big difference for us on the PaceJet side, working now and being part of 3G TMS, right, to have that capabilities. I think we're at our end here of our time, and I'm looking, we have just a couple minutes left. I do know we have 2 questions that have been here that I have not answered, so let me answer those real quick. And then if you have others, you can send it in. Mitch, I'm going to try to take the first one here, okay? And then you comment if I get this a little bit wrong. But the question on this was, when do you need a multi-carrier shipping system, and when do you need a TMS, right? So when would you need one or the other? My answer is going to be, if you're focusing on executing from a pick, where what you really just want to do is rating, tendering, labeling, and stuff of that nature, hey, an MCS is great for you. But if you're looking to manage all your operations, inbound, outbound, multi-stuff, truckload stuff, then you got to get to a TMS. So if you're focusing on the pick execution and getting it out, MCS, operational management, TMS. Is that a fair answer, Mitch?
I think that's basically it. Yes, it's execution versus planning and then execution. We're saying the same thing with different words, but yes.
Okay. I have a question back to the green circle. I think it resonated here. So the question, okay, so what is it about Green Circle that allowed them to save so much money? Yeah.
So, look, I think
maybe I'll go even back a little, so I'll hold that up while you answer
it. So, a funny story going back a long, long time. I think, one of the first optimization algorithm implementations I did was for DuPont in the early 90s. And we went into a plastics facility, which was a very heavy LTL shipper. And we used the algorithm and saved millions and millions and millions of dollars every year. And what happened was all of those LTLs suddenly got converted to multi-stop truckload and or pool distribution. And so Yellow Freight, this is long before YRC existed, Yellow Freight was moving virtually all the long haul LTL. And the guy who handled the DuPont account called me up and he said, "What did you do to me?" And I said, "Well, who are you?" And he explained, and he said, his biggest revenue origin in the country, he lost 80 to 90% of his business literally overnight. And he was almost speechless, which is hard, Alan, you can appreciate this, for a salesman to be. And
Sure.
And he actually lived, I don't know, an hour away from me. So he said, "Can I see what you've done?" So he drives to, I was living in Manhattan, he drives to my apartment, and I showed him what we did. And he asked me really exactly the question that you just asked me. He said, "What are the best customers for optimization?" And I said, "I hate to tell you, but your best customers are my best customers. It's lots of LTL shipments, longer hauls, where really you have optionality. If you're shipping, full truckloads from one place to another, you don't have a lot of optionality. Your only optionality is carrier selection. When you have more shipments and smaller, and if you only move a handful of shipments a day, you have no optionality. If you move a lot of freight, longer hauls, smaller shipments where you can combine them, then you have optionality. And the more options you give an algorithm, the more options that it considers, and the likelihood of saving a lot of money goes up.
So it's a time-proven adage: when you introduce choice and competition, cost goes down. It's just foundational to how our economy runs.
Yes.
All right. I think we are at our time. So I want to thank everybody that joined us and stayed with us and hung out, and hopefully you learned quite a bit. We'll have this, as I said, this is being recorded, so we'll have an opportunity for you guys to access this and share it with other people if you need to. But we do appreciate you taking time out of your day to join us. Mitch, any parting words before we turn it off?
No, I appreciate everybody who attended, and like you said, if they learned something, and certainly if you have follow-up questions, let us know.
All right. Hey, thank you, everybody, and enjoy the rest of your day, and hopefully getting soon to a good weekend. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.